Yeah, well, some of those tech stocks almost might have been down because of the outlook for interest rates. Not 3 interest rate cuts this year, instead maybe 3 interest rate rises. When independent economist Warren Hogan made this prediction last week, it sent the feathers flying, especially among middle-aged commentators who presumably have mortgages and are cheering for rate cuts. But Hogan's forecast raises another issue. Did the Reserve Bank underestimate the stickiness of domestic inflation? Was it too quick to lift its bias for more rate rises this year? Warren Hogan is an advisor to the small business lender Judo Bank and joins me now. Warren, go to the first aspect of that. Was the Reserve Bank too hasty in lifting its bias towards more rate rises when it did so the last time it met?
Look, I think they've gone to a neutral setting on the basis that the Fed had moved to a cutting bias with their forecast, that the numbers were looking a little bit softer. So, look, they've got to go with what the data's telling them, and of course, there's also a lot of pressure on them. You know, A, not to be hiking, or B, to be cutting if that's the way they're moving.
So what do you mean pressure on them to cut?
Well,
where is the pressure coming on an independent Reserve Bank?
I think it's pretty clear in our community how rates up are bad and rates down are good, and I think it's as simple as that.
Do you think that's a political thing? Why would the Reserve Bank be in any way influenced by politics?
Well, I think it's just innate. I don't think our political leaders are in there putting pressure on them explicitly, but I just think that the broader community is clearly what they want to see.
So you don't do things if you're a Reserve Bank governor to be popular, you do things because they're right. Did the Reserve Bank therefore underestimate the stickiness of inflation?
I think they may have, but they haven't ruled anything in or out. So I think they've still got this open to them. I think the Fed's got egg on their face because they're going to have to walk back their dot plot of rate cuts. But I think the RBA is still okay. Not ruling anything in or out was a smart move.
Okay, not ruling anything in or out, but it went to a neutral bias from a bias of raising rates. If what you say is right, inflation is higher than most of the forecasts and higher than where the Reserve Bank has it forecast at this time. Unemployment is lower than where it had it forecast now and into the future, it would seem. These things quite clearly mean that the road to try and get Australia to a lower inflation environment, to therefore create the argument for rate cuts, that doesn't seem to be playing out as the Reserve Bank had suggested.
That's right. And look, I was contemplating moving our central case to these rate hikes before the inflation number because the main reason I'm concerned is that the economy is looking better than they'd thought. As you said, they've underestimated employment. We're averaging 25,000 jobs a month, new jobs a month this year. The long run average is 15,000, 17,000. They probably need it down at 5,000. And then we saw the inflation numbers last week.
But let's be honest, those employment numbers, they're good for Australia. They're good for the government. They're good if they want a surplus. So therefore, if the employment market is strong, that's not a negative, that's a positive. So why would you cheer for lower interest rates if you actually have more people in a job?
Yeah, well, I think that's obviously where the nuance is lost on the broader commentary. But the reality is, if they are brought back into tightening, it's because our economy is doing well. And of course, this is about keeping us on the narrow path. That is, we're wandering off it. The economy's stronger than expected. A couple more taps on the brake brings us back onto it. I'm not expecting a recession at any time. The reality is that it is a reflection of a very healthy economy.
But you look at the depth of the recession in New Zealand right now. You look at other parts of the world which also have economies which are either in or have been recently in recession. Where would you prefer to be right now? Australia, plenty of jobs, no recession, business seems to be going okay, but interest rates are a touch high. So it's the devil you love or the devil you don't love.
Well, and I think that's the point, is in these other economies, the interest rates are higher. And I think this is really what's happened with the Reserve Bank, is they're hoping that all our variable rate mortgages would mean we're more sensitive to rates than other economies. And I think now we're almost 2 years after the first rate hike, and we're proving actually to be pretty resilient.
Okay, so what you're saying is the Reserve Bank did not go hard enough for long enough when they were raising rates. They should have gone for more rate rises to dampen down the demand in our economy even more. You can see this with auction clearance rates. We're going to talk about that shortly. They're still going nuts.
Yeah, look, that was a definite strategy, that they could have gone in line with other central banks. But there is this latent pressure not to overdo it, not to over-tighten it. That was definitely coming from the government.
But that's the narrow path. You're tiptoeing down the narrow path. You know, as Phil Lowe, the former governor, would say, we could fall off it.
Yeah, and it looks like we are, because the worst thing that we could see is getting behind the game on inflation and having to raise rates a lot.
Okay, you've got 3 rate rises penciled in. Are you serious about that? I mean, seriously, 3 rate rises? Or is it maybe a couple of rate rises? Or is it maybe 1 just to send a message?
I think their strategy will be to do 2 back-to-back if the case is there in August, and then it'll be lion ball whether.
So nothing until August. Have a look then, and whichever way it goes, then they might hit it again.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to play out.
But given where the economy is right now, do you see this trajectory we're on, changing anytime soon?
No, well, that's it. I mean, economies have momentum, and the momentum is actually upwards at the moment. Tomorrow's retail sales figures will be critical, but these employment numbers are telling us that there's income growth in the economy, and I think consumers are going to start to loosen the purse strings a bit.
I'll tell you what, Warren Hogan, always good to have you in the program. Many thanks for your time today.